Hello, listeners. Thank you for joining us once again on the Sci-Fi Sundae version 2.0 podcast. We want to hear from you, our listeners, on your thoughts of the Star Wars Skywalker saga as we count them down to the rise of Skywalker. Simply call 760-456-9469 and leave us your review of any one of the Skywalker saga films, and you may be featured in a future episode.
Start with the tone.
Anytime we do the time machine,
there is no school.
These aren't the droids you're looking for. Get away from her, you bitch!
Well, let me finish the movie.
I only have one rule. Everyone fights, no one quits.
Welcome to the Sci-Fi Sundae podcast version 2.0. I'm your host, David Dawson. Thank you once again for joining us. Joining me today are my usual set of Star Wars fanatics. My sister T.
What's happening, everybody?
That's not a Star Wars quote.
No, it's not, but I told you I don't handle the pressure.
Brian.
What?
Hello there.
Mike.
I've got a bad feeling about this.
And Jordan.
I'm the man who made the Kessel run in 12 parsecs.
There it is. Today we're going to be talking about Attack of the Clones, but before we get into the review, I'd like to make a pre-announcement. It's not been officially announced on the site yet, but Sci-Fi Sundae version 2.0 is joining the Gonna Geek Network, which our parent podcast, The Intellectual's been a part of for the last almost 2 years, I think. And we're super excited about that. We're stoked that our podcast is going to be part of a network full of people with like-minded enthusiasm and passion for geek stuff as we have. So if you haven't checked them out before, go to thegonnageeknetwork.com and check out all the plethora of geeky shows that we're going to be a member of very soon. Today's episode is Attack of the Clones, episode 2. Yeah. We did get a call in. Actually, I don't know if you guys listened to the final episode that went out for episode 1, but our buddy Fernando Lopez called in and left us a voicemail about Phantom Menace. So the episode started off with a fan.
Oh, that's awesome.
Leaving us a little bit of a review. And so we're going to start this episode off. Since this came in before all the post-production, I thought, hey, we could listen to this together and maybe kick off the episode with a buddy of ours telling us what he thinks of Attack of the Clones. Here we go. This is Raymond Montemayor, who, by the way, is the producer and director of the Star Wars Toy Stories animated short films.
Those are so good.
Which are incredibly good. They won awards all over the place. The most recent one, Star Wars The Toys Awaken, won Best Stop Motion Animation and Spirit of Star Wars at the most recent Lucasfilm Fan Film Awards back in December. You know, that's pretty cool. And I got to play Yoda in that. So here's Ray giving us his take.
Hey, intellectuals, this is Raymond Montemayor. Thought I'd chime in for Attack of the Clones. So as far as the prequels go, I actually enjoy the prequels. I like them a lot. And I'm an older fan. I grew up watching the original trilogy in the theaters. I think I'm about the same age as David. So those are like my favorites. But the prequels I enjoyed a lot, and specifically Attack of the Clones. If I were to rank all of the Skywalker saga films, that would be probably the second from the bottom, just ahead of the Phantom Menace. But there's a lot of great things that I enjoy about Attack of the Clones. First thing is, George Lucas took the opportunity to really expand the universe again, even further. And and we get to see the origin of the clone troopers, which is a huge thing, that we just hear a little bit about in the original trilogy. So it was great to see how those clone troopers were created. And we get more politics. I think the big criticism in the Phantom Menace was, how exciting, politics, great. But, it's kind of an essential part of the story. You really need that political story to tell the story of how Palpatine rises to power through the whole prequel trilogy. And, it's kind of could be boring at times, but I think it's kind of a necessary part of the whole story. Getting to see Obi-Wan as a detective was kind of cool. I liked kind of following his adventure there. I'm just kind of reading a few notes that I jotted down here, so it's maybe a little disjointed, but something that I did not find that great was the Anakin Padme romance. It was a little cringeworthy, but, kind of a necessary evil. I love Natalie Portman, but just the way that romance was handled was not the best. Getting into the third act was really great. We got to see an army of Jedi in action, which, that's something that I always imagined, but getting to see it on the screen was really exciting. So all of the battle between the Jedi and the clone troopers against the droid army was fantastic. But then we get to the lightsaber battles right at the end. And I wasn't a big fan of those lightsaber battles. I thought the Anakin Dooku battle was, they did some weird stylized thing which didn't work for me. And the Yoda versus Dooku battle was a little over the top. Thought they could have toned that down a little bit. It was almost cartoony, but it's still kind of cool, but, just a little bit over the top. And closing with, Palpatine overlooking his humongous clone trooper army was a really great way to close the film. It really got me excited to see Revenge of the Sith, and so that was just awesome to see. Anyway, I just jotted a few quick notes down and wanted to leave a few thoughts, but I just wanted to say that Attack of the Clones was a good film for me, and as a Star Wars fan, it's kind of essential to have that as part of the whole Skywalker saga. So I really appreciate what George Lucas did there, even though it wasn't perfect. There was a lot of great things about it, and I'm glad that he made it. Looking forward to hearing you from this podcast. Talk to you soon. Bye.
So that was Ray's fairly detailed review of Attack of the Clones.
Love Ray.
Thank you for calling in, Ray. It's so wonderful. A lot of that I agree with. I think this is a nice preview of what we're about to do in the discussion. I find it interesting, and I've looked at a bunch of polls on various Facebook groups about ranking the saga films, and it seems to be fairly universal that Phantom Menace is the bottom and Attack of the Clones is just above it, for the most part. It's just interesting to see that trend continue when Ray called in. I liked his comments about the cringeworthy romance.
Oh, the romance.
So here's something I looked up, right? You don't get this at all in Phantom. There's only a 5-year difference between Padme and Anakin.
Right.
In Phantom, it looks 10 years, easy.
Oof, that's true.
And that's where I think he got a little cringeworthy for Phantom. But yeah, it's just all the red flags that you see happen that she just turns a blind eye to.
Yeah. We'll get into details on that.
Yeah. Talk about a woman ignoring the red flags. I mean, for real. So we were watching this, and that's all I kept saying. It's like, red flags, red flags. Oh my God.
And she seemed to like flip her script pretty quickly. All of a sudden, she's like, no. And then all of a sudden, I love you.
Yeah. No. Crazy woman.
Well, Padme loves a bad boy. What do you want?
Well, look,
There's a bad boy, and then there's insane.
That's a good point. That's a good
Rise
point.
of Skywalker coming, there's a lot of discussion on the internet about Rey being really well developed at the beginning of Force Awakens, but then kind of turning into whatever the script needed her to be, right? As opposed to actually developing her as a character. Padme is exactly the same here. She just goes where the story needs her to go, whether it makes sense for her as a character or not. Very good insights from Ray. And he's a super fan, guys. Like, this guy does stop motion animation for Star Wars with toys. He spends hundreds of hours of his time devoted to his fandom, making these loving tributes to the films. So I'm really honored that he called us and gave us his take on this film. That said, we got to get into our review. We have a little bit of limited time today because I know we got places to go and things to do. So let's jump into it now.
What, no 2.5 hours this time?
Well, my notes are a little shorter than the last one, mostly because there's a lot of long action sequences in this film, and the notes are very easy to do on those. But let's go right from the start with the title, Attack of the Clones. It was highly anticipated to hear what this film was going to be called. My question to the group is, dumbest title ever? Question?
Yes. Well, the Phantom Menace was so highbrow. Phantom Menace. Well, this is fancy. And then Attack of the Clones. The clones are attacking stuff. I said, come on, dude. You really dumbed it down for us, you know? I didn't appreciate it.
Okay. So we're all in agreement. Dumbest title ever. I think it's the dumbest title of the entire series.
There was no creativity to it.
Well, it makes you want to laugh, right? Because it's so close to Attack of the Clowns. Like
Attack of the Killer Tomatoes.
Well, and it invokes that, right? It invokes the worst of B-movie cinema.
Yeah.
Maybe even C-level cinema. I don't know. Anyway, so we talked about the scroll in Phantom Menace. Real quick, the scroll for this one, my notes say, oh no, Senate, planets, leave. Boo-hoo. Wait, what was the rest?
It was a bunch of boring political stuff again.
Well, also they had mysterious Count Dooku, which doesn't make sense because if ever there was a villain that they knew, I mean, Count Dooku lived in the same huge building with them for decades, right? What's mysterious about the guy? He's your buddy.
Right? There's nothing mysterious.
Yeah.
And then that was followed by the tilt up. Why?
Oh, yeah. That had never been done before. I like the opening scene, though. I like, they never address the fact that you just think you fly straight to a planet. No, you fly a certain direction and then you course correct for that planet. I love the opening shot here. I love that we got to see those beautiful Naboo craft. That I really did like. I thought it was a pretty shot.
Yeah, well, let's see. Chrome on clouds.
Oh, yeah, I love
the whole opening is just like, hey, look, the CGI is even better.
Yeah,
very much ILM just showing off is what it felt like.
The Naboo ships remind me of what's that called? Flight of the Navigator.
Yeah.
Oh, that's right.
I'm the navigator.
There's a throwback geek movie for you.
I believe, if I'm not mistaken, ILM did that craft as well.
I think so too.
Yeah. So okay. So CGI is better. It all leads to this explosion where I believe Corday dies, which is supposed to be kind of this big dramatic moment that kind of sets the story in motion. But I don't know about you guys, but like this is lazy freaking writing because I don't know Corday. I don't care about Corday, and there's positively no emotional impact.
Wait, she had a name?
Yeah.
I think
good point.
This was the first spot. I mean, it's the opening scene of the movie that pulled me out, and I could never get back in. And from then on, I was constantly nitpicking the movie and finding all the questions. My problem was the explosion came from inside the ship. I'm like, they're being attacked from the outside. Why were they able to shoot something directly through past everyone's head into the doorway? But that was my one question. I'm like, why did the explosion come from inside the ship? They're looking around trying to find out where the bad guys are. And I never got pulled back in.
Well, yeah, Django's good, but he's not that good.
Yeah, it just, there's a number of questions at the beginning of this. My second question is, Padme's a senator now. She still wanders around with a body double? Like, this girl is really full of herself.
That's a good point. Plus, Courtney is ridiculous because Courtney's laying on her death platform, and she goes, "I failed you, Senator." No, actually, you did your job.
What you were supposed to do.
Yeah. Excellently done. Your next of kin is definitely getting that Christmas bonus, Corday. Thanks.
I feel, though, that I don't think she necessarily walks around still with the doubles. I think the guard forced that because that was the argument of, see, I told you there was a threat.
Either that or Padme just likes to fly fighters around, and it's the only way she gets a chance to get in the cockpit.
But how do you hire somebody for that, right? If it was a one-time thing, hey, so listen, are you available this weekend for a suicide mission? Cool. It pays double because it's hazard pay, but you're probably not going to get to spend it. Just FYI, heads up.
Credits? Who needs credits? Yeah, I just, as beautiful as that opening was, and it's like it's a repeat of Phantom Menace in like, here's some beautiful CGI to show you where the CGI's come, and now we're gonna blow up a ship just so we can blow up a ship, but there's really no emotional impact to it. So hopefully you're on board. I don't know. It's like didn't work for me. And then that, of course, moves us right along into the council chambers, where we got our first taste of a digital Yoda. So the question to the panel, did you guys like digital Yoda?
It was okay. Yeah, it's tough.
I liked it. And I'm glad they kept it with it throughout the entire thing versus like, hey, here's a chance to use a puppet. Here's a chance to use CG true. Like later on, because otherwise it would have thrown you way off with the CG, with the lightsaber battle later on. I dug it. I liked it a lot. And like we said before, like you see how much the CG has changed in 3 years of making a movie.
Because the emotions shown on Yoda's face in this movie are light years ahead of what they were doing with Jar Jar in the film before it.
Right.
How many years in the Star Wars universe is this supposed to be later?
10.
Got it.
Yeah, whole decade. Yeah. I like this. Look, I prefer this Yoda over a horrible puppet Yoda because how could a movie that was made 20 years earlier have nailed Yoda and then 20 years later they're like, we're just going to phone it in. Episode 1 Yoda was horrendous, so I'm glad that they went to this Yoda to sort of see Yoda needed to emote this time around. They could have done it with a puppet, but I'm just glad they didn't. I think it looked better.
Well, I think there were a couple of things from what I remember reading about the making of these and watching the documentaries and stuff was they tried to make episode 1's puppet Yoda look younger than Empire's, and somewhere in that translation it just didn't quite work right. They were never able to create a Yoda that was as convincing. And they didn't seem to get the color right. That first puppet Yoda in episode 1, just the color was never quite where it should be. And that said, Frank Oz also, this was a lot of Yoda, and I don't think he, at his age at that point, I don't think he was prepared to have his hand up the butt of a puppet for that long on set.
Good point.
I personally like digital Yoda. I like digital characters just in general for what they allow us to see emotionally speaking. And in this film, Yoda's emotions are so important. His ability to emote is so important. I don't think you could have done this movie without having a digital Yoda. Not as effectively as it was done. So that's my take on digital Yoda. I know people hate him. There are people who hate him. To which, hey, fine, hate him all you like. But yeah, puppet Yoda doing a lightsaber duel later in the movie would be even weirder looking than what the digital one ended up being. I mean, bad enough that one half of that lightsaber duel is an old man, but we'll get into all that when we get there. Hey, Rose Byrne is a handmaiden.
Yeah, how crazy was that? I didn't even, honestly, obviously I had no idea who she was then, but now I'm like, hey, Rose Byrne, nice.
Yeah, nice.
I think we had to look it up. I mean, we recognized her, but I think we had to look up the name.
And hey, look at this. Jimmy Smits is Bail Organa. How did you feel, Jordan, about Jimmy Smits joining the Star Wars universe in this particular role?
You know what? I was elated because look, sometimes certain franchises throw a bone to Latinos, but in this one, they actually made a Latino an interesting character that actually does something. And I was so excited about it. And I'm glad to see that they sort of kept that moving. So now, as we see, Alderaan is Latino, and I couldn't be happier about it. Honestly, I was really excited to see positive, influential Latino characters in Star Wars, which is something that I love because for the first time, I mean, I was able to relate to it before, but now even more so I'm able to relate to it. Plus, I love Jimmy Smits. I just love that guy.
Cool.
Wasn't he added in later?
It's my understanding he wasn't part of the cast during filming.
During the shoot, right? So they
all his stuff was added in post.
Yeah, they green screened him and just added him in all the spots.
Because he was still shooting. Was it NYPD
West Wing.
Blue? No, he was on NYPD.
Yeah, NYPD Blue.
Okay.
Yeah, West.
Oh, and the West Wing. That's right.
Yeah, well, West Wing was after this was done, but yeah, so like all his scenes, he's green screened in.
Yeah.
Which, again, Lucas is doing interesting things with filmmaking that are totally common now, but at the time was, considered revolutionary to have a major character just shot later like that.
I thought it was cool to see him there. I mean, yeah. I mean, we got Samuel L. Jackson, so we got our Black Jedi, and then we got Jimmy Smits in there being the head of a planet. So I mean, it's cool. It was cool to see them not come in as lower class.
Mm.
Yeah. Hey, did anybody notice the weird Starfleet symbol on top of Palpatine's desk? What's that about? I noticed that upon first watching it, and every subsequent time, I can't take my eyes off of it. What are they trying to tell us here?
I don't know.
Okay. It's so blatant. It's like a weird glass Starfleet-looking symbol, and I'm like, okay, we get it. You're superior to Star Trek, according to George Lucas.
Speaking of Palpatine, this first scene with him and the council of people in his office, it's such a beautiful continuation of the scenes he had with Padme in Episode 1, where we get to see him really pulling strings, right? And in this one, he's manipulating everything to put Padme together with Obi-Wan so that she's with Anakin. And we had that moment, we talked about it in the last episode, where just before the cut, there's a look on his face, right? And they did it again here, where he's walking behind his chair and he's looking back at her, and you can see him watching the gears all kind of come together and everything flow in the direction he wants. Right there with Yoda in the room. And
so blatant. So
Yoda
blatant.
knows nothing about what's going on.
Well, Yoda glares at him.
I loved it.
Yeah, I like Palpatine's performance, but Yoda glares at him, and I'm like, okay, great. But then he glares at him other times, and I'm like, is Yoda just naturally unhappy? Like, it looks like Yoda's having a bad day throughout this entire film. But I do like Palpatine's machinations. I like the evil of Palpatine.
Yeah. Yeah, I think in the end, this is where we start seeing the Jedi not liking the politics of the galaxy right now. And I don't think they enjoy the fact that Palpatine, he exerts his power in ways that maybe they don't like. And telling them, oh, connect her with Obi-Wan. Obi-Wan will take care of her, you know, like, who are you to tell me where my Jedi are going to go? I think that was Yoda's response.
Ah.
Because they're not in, you know, a military situation yet, right? Like, Palpatine's not the supreme ruler yet, but he doesn't seem to have any problems putting his suggestions into the universe.
What was that?
Go for Papa Palpatine.
Thank you, B. And then, of course, we get the scene where Jar Jar reappears.
Oof.
Oh, Jar Jar.
Oof.
What a disaster.
Well, my notes are, is Jar Jar less is more? Because there's far less Jar Jar in this movie than there was before.
Yeah, but he was so cranked up still. Although I do like that people responded to him. You know, every time he'd go nuts, they'd be like, enough, get out of here. And I liked it because that's the only thing I liked about it. The fact that I think George Lucas' message kind of received, although had he really received our message, he wouldn't have put him back in at all. Or he would have had him get hit by a truck, space truck.
You're going to get Brian started down a path none of us want him to go down.
I was wondering when Brian was going to chime in on this.
Okay, I apologize. I didn't mean to trigger him.
No, I'm not going to mention it. I'm not going to talk about
it. Brian's got a very fascinating thought process on Jar Jar. And I think at some point in time
is Sith theory.
Yes, and I think at some point in time we should just record him explaining it and just post it and then see what people say.
It's not my theory. It is someone on the internet's theory. It's a fan theory that I've just subscribed to. I'd be happy to sit and read and share with all of you the very fine points that are made, that Jar Jar is the evil one, and that Dooku was thrown in to replace the idea that we can't have Jar Jar as the evil one. And that,
look, I definitely listened to that because Brian last week was telling me just a little bit of it, and I'm like, oh my God, his explanation was the only one that ever got to me and made me say, you know what? You might have a point. So I would definitely listen to
that. We'll see.
Like I said, we should just record him and then post it and see what people say.
I think so too.
I'd be happy to do a Sci-Fi Sunday. Just Jar Jar is evil.
That would be fun.
We can do that. My counterpoint will just be that Jar Jar represents country bumpkins.
Too.
He's Grandma Clampett himself.
I'm sorry. Are my politics showing?
I love how Mike's just staying quiet.
This is also where we get the first chance to see Obi-Wan and Anakin really kind of interacting as Jedi and Padawan. I liked the bit with them in the elevator. There's humor. There's kind of a relationship, a touching relationship between the two of them, where they're talking about when Obi-Wan fell into the vat of Gondarks and Anakin had to save him. And there's backstory that's alluded to here that the two of them have really become close. And then it's all gone to fucking shit when they walk in and have their meeting with Padme, and Obi-Wan starts chastising him in front of Padme and telling him to mind his place and starts referring to him constantly as my young Padawan, my very young Padawan. That shit pisses me off. I hate that whole bit of my young Padawan. I don't know if it's everybody else the wrong way, but every time Obi-Wan calls him my very young Padawan, I just want to smack Obi-Wan around and go, "Are you an idiot?"
It's the thing though. They all fucking do that. So I don't understand the problem. Fucking Yoda did it to Dooku.
Oh my God, you're right.
Windu did it.
Sorry.
Windu did it too. Yeah.
There's a part where, because obviously Anakin doesn't like it, but there's a part specifically when he calls him my young Padawan in front of Padme, and he looks like he wants to strangle him to death.
Yeah.
I honestly think Obi-Wan does it to kind of, cut Anakin down and kind of, put him in his place. I get it to humble him, but like, come on, dude, pick your battles on this one.
Yeah, it just, I don't know. It just rubs me wrong.
I don't know. For me, it is.
And I don't mind it so much from Yoda and Mace and whatever. They're on the council, speaking down to people's kind of what they do. But Obi-Wan doing it to Anakin, I don't know. For me, it just always feels wrong every time he says it. And maybe it's a fault on Ewan McGregor in the way he delivers the line. I don't know. But it always feels so belittling, and especially in the case of doing it in front of Padme, like chastising your kid in front of other people, like it's like when you see the parent yelling at their kid at Disneyland, it just feels off. Like, can't you do that in a different way? I don't know. It doesn't work for me.
It's really awkward. It's really awkward at times, and you can see that with everyone around. And this is where I think the part of it is you can clearly see no matter who he's around. It's not just Obi-Wan, but you're right. Obi-Wan just always has this kind of belittling mentality. But like Anakin just can't take anyone's criticism about his abilities, and it's later on. It's later on. He's with Padme on Naboo, and the guy, one of the senators, is like, "Hey, Master Jedi, what's your opinion?" "Oh, he's not a Jedi Master yet," and he flips out. Like, that's the stuff that, like, you see him just like, I should be all powerful, right? Like, I don't need these training wheels on, and it's you can clearly see that Obi-Wan's kind of had to like knock him into place a couple times here.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, see, I agree. I think it has a lot. I think what it shows is how much Obi-Wan has had to almost just kind of constantly battle with whiny Anakin. Because Anakin always feels he deserves more. Anakin always feels he's better. He's not learning what's supposed to be the simplicity and the what's it called? But not being so full of himself. And I feel he's just gotten to the point with Anakin that it's after so many times of over and over again. I mean, it's clear, and even with the stories, when they talk about some of the stuff in the past, you can tell that kid just never listens. And is always going to be. So in my opinion, I feel that that's what that is. That has everything to do with them showing us that since the last time we saw Anakin to now, that kid has been a constant fight against what it is to be a Jedi.
Well,
that's a good point. And I'll tell you what else it does.
Go ahead, Jordan.
Oh, it's sort of from Anakin's perspective, because I get Teresa's right. I think that's exactly why Obi-Wan's doing it. And from Anakin's perspective, I can see why he's become so embittered. But Anakin, I think, doesn't realize that it's his fault. So when he's railing against Obi-Wan and stuff, I get the bitterness, but Anakin doesn't realize that he sort of needs to constantly be humbled. But it sort of strengthens. I'm able to sort of relate to Anakin because he's not bitter out of nowhere. He's bitter because he just doesn't understand why Obi-Wan's doing that to him. But necessary evil.
Well, and he's also a teenager. So, I mean, it's also a teenager sort of fighting against, parental figure.
Like every teenager, they know better. They know, I know what I'm doing.
I know what's right. I'm good at this. I'm good at that. I can do all this stuff. I'm better than he is. I know more. I know this. That's kind of what I get out of it.
I can see all that. My argument against all of that is when it starts sounding like a competition between the two of them over who's better at being a Jedi. That's not how you teach. So the bit when they're standing outside of Padme's room and Anakin says, "Well, it was her idea to use her as bait," He says, "I can feel everything going on in that room." Obi-Wan's response is, "Are you sure? Like your senses are not as attuned as my own, my young apprentice." It's like, whoa, like put your cocks away, guys. Like, right now she's not into either of you, but it just, I don't know, as an educator, as an uncle, I just don't feel like belittling people and getting into competitions about who's better at something is the way to teach someone. And maybe that's the point. Maybe the point is to see that Anakin, along with being, cocksure on his own, he's also saddled up with somebody who's not a good teacher.
Well, and also too, like Obi-Wan was kind of forced into the position of teaching. Qui-Gon made him promise to teach. So he may have been ready to take the trials and be a Jedi Knight, but to actually take on a teaching,
he didn't have the maturity yet to be a teacher.
Exactly.
So it was like a child teaching a child.
That's an excellent point.
Because Obi-Wan barely became a master before all of a sudden he had a Padawan. So I mean,
yeah, and I also think
he's also the chosen.
Yeah, I also think that's why Obi-Wan keeps calling him my young apprentice, my very young apprentice. I mean, it's one thing to say it occasionally. Obi-Wan says it to him all the freaking time. And I think part of that is like they're not that far separated in age. It's like 10 years as opposed to 20, Because usually when you take on a Padawan, you take them on as a youngling. And like a younger than Anakin youngling.
Well, and that was the point I was going to make too. The other thing is Obi-Wan's having to battle against the fact that Anakin started way later than normal. So he didn't get going in the training as early as they're supposed to. So they get going in the training early before that sort of combative personality has already kicked in for a kid.
True. Okay, I got one more thing that I have to touch on before we keep moving forward, and it's really, really important. But Obi-Wan's hair, WTF?
the Jesus look,
the Jesus mullet.
I like his hair the most in this than in any other film. I love his hair. I love him go wild.
It's very soft and flowy.
There are a number.
Yeah, just so much bounce and body.
There are a number of close-ups. There are a number of close-ups, especially like in that first scene in the room where he's chastising Anakin, where there you can see the tangles in his hair. It's look, like it if you like it. I don't.
I love all the memes of Obi-Wan as Jesus all over the place.
Obi-Wan's Jesus stuff is hilarious.
Yeah, it's like my favorite.
It's hilarious.
So okay, Coruscant looks gorgeous at night in this movie.
Beautiful.
So pretty. Production design on Coruscant art direction is hands down everything I wanted Coruscant to look like. We also get introduced to Jango Fett and Zam Wesell at this point in the film when they go to try and kill Padme. One bounty hunter hiring another bounty hunter. Why?
I think he's sort of putting a layer of insulation between him. He doesn't want it to be.
I'm subcontracting out because I don't want to be recognized. I mean, nobody knew who he was to begin with. So, but I thought Zam Wessel was cool. It was cool to see a female bounty hunter. But she was cool. Good one. Poisonous caterpillars. Really?
Yeah, pretty lazy lady. I mean, she's not a Bond villain. She's a senator. Come on.
Wouldn't
give her the respect of actually firing at her.
Yeah, wouldn't a sniper rifle from a
book depository? That's what I'm saying.
Well, from a transport or whatever, just going by the window. Like,
if you can,
the same way she died, couldn't she have just done that?
Yeah, right.
If you can jump through a window, you can shoot through a window.
That's true. That's true.
Jumping through a window is badass. Obi-Wan Kenobi doesn't even stop to contemplate if it's a good idea. He just goes, and I love it. I love that.
Yeah, it's a reckless thing to do.
Well, again, getting back to that moment with Qui-Gon melting the door, there's a unrelenting, you can't escape the Jedi feel in that. Right? They're gonna get you no matter what. And it's fun to see a Jedi like just going all out like that. I thought that was cool. And then it sets up a really fun sequence. And thank God for this, we have an action sequence in this movie early on.
Yeah, and this is a good one.
Yeah, I like the whole chase through Coruscant. I thought it gave ILM this chance to show this beautiful city planet at night. You get to see them running through the streets, all the different nightlife going on. I thought it was cool.
You get some real comedy between Obi-Wan and Anakin, finally, again. Between their banter on the speeder, like, I had to pick out the right one with the right lift, like, that was funny. And then where it leads on.
And I like that the Jedi are so calm in the midst of a chase, that they're bantering with each other, right?
Although this is where you see that Obi-Wan hates flying, so that's fun.
I get the feeling he doesn't like flying now because he spends so much time with Anakin.
You're right.
Well, I think it goes back to the competition thing too here. Anakin saw that, Obi-Wan can jump out of a window and go flying through with this little thing. I'm just going to jump off here and show him I can do that too.
Oh, one-ups. I didn't even catch that.
Oh, B. Well done. I didn't catch that one.
Nice.
Oh, that's a good point.
Because Anakin just jumps right out of the speeder. Like,
I hate it when he does that.
Yeah, good catch, B. Yeah, it's definitely one-upsmanship at that point. Wow. Okay, cool. One other thing I caught on this run, at one point they go flying through some power couplings, and Obi-Wan starts yelling at Anakin, what have I told you about avoiding power couplings? And that line always like, what the hell what is that? Oh yeah, he got separated from Qui-Gon by power couplings.
Yeah.
Oh, that's what that means.
Yeah.
So he's got a whole thing about power couplings. Avoid them at all costs.
Yes.
It dawned on me on this viewing.
Wow. I missed that. Nice.
David, I'm with you. I caught that this viewing too.
Yeah.
Well, after how many years I went,
I always thought it had to do with Jar Jar and sticking his tongue in the electric.
Yeah,
the power couplet. That's what I thought.
Yeah, but except Obi-Wan wasn't around. He was back on the ship for that.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
I think we can all agree that power couplings are the real villain of the Star Wars trilogy or saga.
Of the prequel trilogy, for sure.
Yeah. It's fratricide in every other trilogy.
Eventually, the two of them end up in the city streets. They go to a bar, which I like the difference in this bar from the Cantina in New Hope. Like, Cantina is like gritty, like, your local bar where all the lowlifes go. The truckers are there, like whatever. This is like a highbrow sports bar.
Did you notice how many humans are in that bar?
Oh, it's definitely a human.
It's all human bar.
Yeah.
Almost all entirely human.
Yeah. Coruscant is very, very racist. Or speciesist.
I think it's more
Xenophobic.
elitist. I think it's elitist. I think you have to have a lot of money to be there.
But I love this sequence. I love Obi-Wan handing Anakin his lightsaber. You know, this is your life. You know, protect. This is where Ewan McGregor starts to echo Alec Guinness, which I think is.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, this entire scene is great between the two of them and his acting entirely. You know, what I feel like you're going to be the death of me as they're walking into the bar. The whole death stick scene is probably like my favorite scene in the entire movie.
Ooh, that's interesting.
It's just fun. It's just fun. It's just a fun little like. You want to go home and rethink your life.
I wouldn't say the bar. I wouldn't say the bar is racist. I'd say it's maybe a themed bar. Like, you know, there's Peruvian bars and there's gay bars and there's human bars, and this was just a human bar.
I wish you would have wandered into a Coruscant Peruvian bar. I would dying to find out what that looks like.
So this is the human supremacist bar.
You know, it's upscale.
It's elitist, so, you know.
They're elitist.
Obi-Wan's a bit of an elitist too. He uses his, political ideology. Obi-Wan, I get that you don't like death sticks, but don't use your mind powers to ruin this guy's small business. I mean, you know, live and let live, guy.
I don't know. I thought it was pretty funny. I laugh every time I see that bit.
You want to talk about over-the-top vocalizations? That guy, death sticks. I'm gonna go rethink my life. It's like young Watto without the blue or the wings.
It's true.
Well, in this bar, too, you get to see Anthony Daniels. You get to see the guy who plays Jar Jar.
Ahmed Best.
Ahmed Best, thank you. They're in the bar.
Yep. And there's a lot of that. There's a lot of the costumed people who make appearances in the background all throughout the prequels, which I think is cool. I think it's cool that they get the opportunity to be seen. Even if you don't know that's who they are, they did get to get their face into the Star Wars universe as well. So I think that's really cool.
I mean, we know who they are because we're nerds.
True. This is very true. Card-carrying nerd, and I love it. I also love this sequence because it's the Jedi doing the Old West Sheriff routine, right? And when Anakin says to the crowd, you know, go back to your drinks, just Jedi business, right? Like, it's so smooth and so cool. It's everything I wanted the Jedi to be, you know? Like, I loved it.
But do you notice that's Obi-Wan's go-to? I mean, that guy cannot go into a bar without heading over to get a drink. He does the same thing at the cantina. I kind of want to see what this Obi-Wan show is going to be about. It's mostly him just getting plastered, you know?
That's funny. So at the end of this whole sequence, Sam Wessel gets a dart to the neck. The boys get their first glimpse of Jango Fett. And we get our first real kind of look at Anakin letting loose with a bit of anger.
That creeped me out.
And I don't know. I kind of liked how that whole scene played out. Because even Obi-Wan's looking at him kind of like, whoa, this is not how we do things, you know, like settle down, but didn't actually say anything to him, you know?
Yeah, I think it was a good start to show Anakin even throwing Obi-Wan just a little off as far as where is this coming from, you know, and not entirely sure how to settle him down. So like all the stuff before, the belittling and this and that sort of thing, this is one of those moments where even Obi-Wan was just not sure how to handle it. Mm-hmm. And I kind of liked how that turned out. So there was a moment to belittle and try to put him in his place, and he did it because it was just whoa, where'd this come from, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the flare up caught him off guard. This is also because of this dart. This is the beginning of like the crime procedural aspect of this film, which I love. Obi-Wan investigating.
Yeah.
And I love.
Yeah, that was cool.
Like, for me, that's the best part of this whole movie is Obi-Wan like hitting the streets, asking the questions, going to the library, like doing all the things that you do when you're a cop hunting down a lead, you know, like I loved that whole aspect of this movie.
Yeah, he goes sees his, his informant on the streets sort of thing, and like his CI, he goes.
Yeah, that was so cool. It's like an episode of Miami Vice, only in space without as many drugs.
I don't know. There were death sticks.
Oh, true. Okay, space Miami Vice. You're right. It hits all the marks.
And when they're talking about what happened with the council, this is where Yoda calls out all the Jedi flaws, which I thought was interesting. That they've had an inability to see things, and they're cocky, and Yoda really called it all out at that point. It was really interesting.
Well, that came off of too, like you see the conversation between Yoda and Mesa that, okay, we actually have a clone army being built, and if we're completely blind, this is how bad things have gotten. To me, like how arrogant that librarian was to Obi-Wan.
Oh yeah, that's in my notes.
If it's not in our archives, it doesn't exist. Come on.
Yeah.
Really?
Get over yourself, Jacob.
Wow.
Yeah, I wrote Jedi librarian is full of herself.
Yeah, like the complacency of the elder Jedi, and stuff is insane. I mean, the fact that they have gotten so full of themselves that nobody, that they are right and always right, and nobody can put something past them, is probably the exact reason why they lost so much of being in touch with the Force.
Mm-hmm. That's true.
Quick side note about that Jedi. She actually has an interesting character arc. She's one of the people that survives the Order 66, and she sort of atones for her arrogance, and it's her that saves a lot of the. She sneaks back into the temple to get a lot of the old Jedi artifacts, and she says, "You know what? I've made a huge mistake, and we will never be this arrogant again when the Order once again rises." So, but yeah, I mean, you're absolutely right. She is an arrogant douche, and I didn't like her then.
She's the worst. Okay, at this point, things start getting set in motion. Obi-Wan's going to go on his mission. Anakin gets his mission. And this is where we're actually introduced to the idea of representative binks. Talk about failing upwards.
The George Lucas story.
This is also where Anakin and Padme are in Padme's room while she's packing, which I think is a weird thing to begin with. But this is where we get introduced to creepy stalker Anakin.
First red flag.
Yeah, my notes on this whole sequence, because she says, "Don't look at me like that." He goes, "Why?" She's like, "I don't like it." My notes say #me too, Anakin. #me too.
Well, I just kept saying creepy. Creepy. Stop being creepy. Stop being creepy. It's gross.
Yeah, what passes for romance in George Lucas's writing is difficult to swallow. But then when they go to leave, there's a nice scene between Anakin and Obi-Wan again as they're saying goodbye. And I think there is a bit of moments in the movie where you do get to see that Anakin does respect Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Absolutely.
And does care for him. And I like that aspect does come across. I think it's important, especially in light of what happens in the third film.
Well, and there are good moments where you can see Obi-Wan really does, even though with the belittling, he does care for Anakin and stuff, and his well-being of things. So
yeah. and it really is less of a father-son kind of mentorship and much more of a kind of big brother, little brother kind of deal, I think.
Absolutely. Even though, like, Anakin keeps saying he's as close to a father figure as I ever had. But at the same time, I think you're right. It is much more of an older brother forced to take care of a younger brother situation.
Yeah.
Yeah, and if you look at it that way, then that sort of banter that they have and the belittling completely makes sense.
Yeah. This was a point where I made a note as Anakin and Padme are walking away with R2. They're both confessing the fact that they're a little scared, which I thought was good. And Anakin plays it off with, "Hey, don't worry, we have R2 with us." I liked that the acting seemed to be allowed to open up a bit in this movie. It's not great all the time, but but the human actors do seem to be trying to touch on more emotional places in this go than they did in The Phantom Menace.
Overall, I would say the acting is a big step up from Phantom. I know a lot of people had problems with Hayden. And going back at it, and I know I had my issues at points, but there are so many subtle things that man does for Anakin's character that are brilliant the more times you watch it, and to see how the little things he twists, especially that man's eyes. That man's eyes, when he gets super angry later on, are just perfect.
Oh, yeah.
Well, I remember reading an interview with Hayden where he said he really wanted to explore more of the subtleties of that transition over time. But George kept pulling him back and saying, no, we're saving that for later. Like, all that's for later. Like, we're going to do that later. And really hamstrung his performance from allowing him to explore more of those kind of moments of
interesting
losing his cool or being upset. And I think that maybe is what leads to some people feeling like there's a rough performance from Hayden Christensen. I think he was struggling with how to portray the subtext that he knew was within the piece while being directed from George Lucas to not play the subtext that's within the piece.
No, I agree.
Which sounds exactly like George Lucas directing.
Exactly. I mean, straight up. And again, it comes back to what I have a lot of issues sometimes with the ones who write and are so close to home to a story being the directors of the films. I have an issue with it a lot of times because I feel they don't know how to let go and allow actors and the other people in the production crew to bring it to life the way it probably should, because they're so attached to what they visually saw in their head.
Yeah, I can agree with that.
And this is a perfect example of that. Hey, Dave, real quick, you mentioned that scene where Anakin and Padme are walking away. And, I never caught this before. So they said, oh, you guys are going undercover as refugees, which is all well and good. But, I mean, he's got a dirty poncho, and she's dressed to the nines. I mean, he looks like Tuco from Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, and she looks like Lady Gaga at a Met Gala. What kind of refugees are these? Sell that headband and buy yourself an entire starship and then just get there in comfort.
I thought the same thing when they're getting off of their transport on Tatooine, and Padme's got that beautiful blue robe and the beautiful blue like jumpsuit that she's wearing underneath slash dress. I'm like, Padme doesn't know how to go undercover to save her life.
Send a body double. She'll dress down.
Can't. That one's gone already.
Wah, wah.
Oh. Well, she goes through body doubles like the rest of us go through Kleenexes.
And at some point during this run, while they're making their way where they're going, R2 is serving drinks again. Which,
yay!
As we discussed last film, not the best droid for serving drinks. Like, you have to add attachments, and I don't know. Just Yoda with the younglings, I thought was a beautiful scene. And also part of Obi-Wan's continued journey of discovery. But I loved how Obi-Wan got a kick out of watching Yoda working with the younglings. Because I was like, yeah, Obi, that's how you work with kids.
Yeah, very, very well done scene. Completely overall. The talk between Yoda with the kids is great. And you just see that subtle smile, little smirk on Obi-Wan's face.
Yeah. Yeah, I think this is actually one of my favorite Yoda scenes in the entire saga.
It's the one you've quoted. Beautiful mind of a child.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe I got a soft spot for kids, but I like this sequence, and I like that it respects the intelligence of children, which seems to be counter to a lot of the Jedi teachings that we've seen thus far in the prequels, where Qui-Gon's constantly ignoring Obi-Wan's input and Obi-Wan's constantly belittling Anakin. Here's Yoda showing everybody how it's done, which I think is great. But that
was awesome.
But clearly, Yoda's Padawans, he's turned into being not the greatest either.
That's a good point.
I'm not entirely sure if his ways are even that much better. Maybe he allowed too much.
I don't know. I think there's definitely problems with the way the Jedi are structured at this point in their history. I think the no attachments thing is a problem. I think pulling kids from their families before they get too attached to them is a problem. I don't know. I have a lot of issues with how the Jedi are structured at this point in the universe.
It's very Russian ballet.
Yeah, very Black Widow.
Yeah.
I mean, it's dark, really. Even Qui-Gon saying to Shmi, had you been in the New Republic or in the Republic, we'd have identified him sooner. It's like, whoa. That's weirdly spoken.
Yeah, it's creepy.
Yeah. Anyway, so now we've got a whole interesting set of events that happen now. So you've got Anakin messing around with Padme on Naboo. Boy, what a rough assignment. And and Obi-Wan is out hitting the streets and finding himself in weird places like Kamino. First question: why are all the Star Wars worlds just one complete climate and geography?
This is baloney. I mean, at least on Tatooine, there's different kinds of desert. We got some dunes, we got a little bit of rocky mountains. We don't have much plant life, but you're right. I mean, it's Geonosis is essentially space Sedona. It's odd.
Space Sedona. Yeah, but that's bothered me since I was a kid. Brian, do you have any thoughts on that? Why the planets are all solitarily one style?
I don't have. I've wondered that myself. I haven't come up with any kind of rationalization.
The desert planet Tatooine, the ice planet Hoth, the forest moon of Endor. They're even described singularly.
Exactly.
The city planet Coruscant, right? The whole planet's a city.
Yeah.
I mean, if you really want to dive down through the rabbit, if you watch the Ewok movies, they've got canyons, they've got deserts, they got a little lake. It's kind of nice. Endor, I think, has the most diversity, but I know we don't talk about the Ewok adventures.
Yeah, we don't want to know about the teddy bears and their picnic. So at one point in this conversation, Padme says to Anakin, the day we stop believing in democracy, that democracy can work is when we'll lose it. Prophetic? Maybe?
True. Yeah.
The one thing that kept dawning on me watching these movies is how much of it like politically resonates with crap I feel's going on right now.
Well, and that was a lot of inspiration when he made these movies too. I mean, there was a lot of stuff going back on in early 2000s as well, but it's so much of the red flags for Anakin that Padme should have known revolve around politics. Like that entire conversation is completely cringeworthy. And she even like looked at him like double takes a couple times, like you being serious right now? And then he kind of laughs off. No, I'm just joking. But really, I'm dead serious. We just need a dictatorship.
I kept expecting that kind of double take on him. No, I'm just kidding. Really? Eyebrow raise.
Yeah.
It felt like a stupid sketch comedy, like that whole sequence. Yeah, no, again, the whole interaction between Padme and Anakin is cringeworthy.
Red flags,
constantly.
flags.
But I don't understand, like, why does she value politics more than, like, human interaction? You know what I mean? He massacred an entire village, and she's like, whatever, boys will be boys. But God forbid, he warm up to fascism. Jeez.
Again, Padme goes where the story tells her to, not where character tells her to go.
Yeah, it's
really
sloppy.
Very poor, sloppy writing when it comes to Padme. Kamino, the water planet. Kamino.
Absolutely gorgeous.
I thought.
Yeah, nice.
I love the whole sequence where Obi-Wan's seeing the clones in like those little gestation chambers and stuff at various stages of development. Really cool to see that creation of the clone army, which is something as a kid who grew up on the original trilogy, like the clone armies was this abstract thing that happened in the past that you imagined all the time, but to actually see it like in its infancy, literally growing and being born here, I thought was a really cool thing.
Yeah, but what always bothered me about the clones is the fact that did you see them when they were at their early 20s or whatever? Why do they look more like the Queen's bodyguard with the eye patch than they do like Jango Fett? Do you ever notice that? Is that not the same actor, or am I just? Thank you.
I totally thought that.
It is the same actor.
Okay, or maybe we're all just racist.
Yeah, you think all New Zealanders look alike?
A little bit, yeah.
It's okay. Mike thinks all Korean kids look the same, so it's fine.
True story.
Oh, thank God. Okay.
There it is. I don't know why we're friends.
One thing that really
we're all horrible people.
One thing that really stood out to me during this whole sequence with the Kaminoans is Ewan McGregor is so much better at acting opposite CG characters in this movie than he was in The Phantom Menace.
Oh, that's true.
His sight lines are spot on. His focus space is much more improved.
I think that has a lot to do with Ewan McGregor. Because, I think he on his own, especially, probably realized it. And let alone, he would be one of those ones. He was a Star Wars fan to begin with. So he would be one of those ones that would listen to the fans a little bit and go, yeah, no, I agree. I should fix that on the next one. But yeah, his interaction with CG characters were pretty flawless considering this was so early on with the whole.
Well, there's one shot in this whole sequence where he's sitting in the weird bubble chair opposite the other Kamino and is sitting in a bubble chair, and you've got the other Kamino and is standing up. So there's multiple sight lines, and he's looking at each of them and having interactions with them both. And then he stands up, waits for one to walk by, follows that one out, and as he's passing the other one, looks up at his face or her face and tracks with it as he's walking by her, and then continues on and hits the sight lines every step of the way. And it really stood out to me. I'm like, this is great. You can see the progression of performing opposite CG characters getting better as the actors start to understand it, maybe as the technical people start to understand how to help the actors more.
Yeah, because this was the first movie that started with the tennis balls. So the tennis balls was the line of sight. So they, it was in this one. And again, yeah, because I think the production crew also realized, crap, we got to help with this out a little bit too, because they noticed everybody was looking in different spots.
Well, I think the way they handled it in Phantom Menace was Ahmed Best wore a weird Jar Jar head.
Yeah.
And they would rehearse the scene with him in that space so that they could like understand where he would be. Then he'd walk out and they'd do the scene completely without him in it.
Yeah, which makes no sense.
Everybody's still guessing where to look. And yeah, so the tennis balls, I think, started to really help. So, the whole time Obi-Wan's learning these secrets about the clone army being commissioned by a Jedi who was obviously lying about getting the command from the Senate. And all I could say the whole time was like, play cool, Obi-Wan, play cool.
I think this was Obi-Wan's true detective work. Because like he walked in and was about ready to ask some questions, and they're like, "Oh, are you Mr. Johnson?" Why, yes, I am Mr. Johnson. What do you have to tell me?
That's exactly right.
Yeah, he did. He played it cool the whole time. He's like, "Oh, yes, this is a fine army. I'm sure
that's what I'm here for." You know,
right? I am.
Yeah,
that's hilarious.
And then you get him overlooking the whole troops on that dais. Just cool to see Obi-Wan. I love that Obi-Wan's the one who discovers the clone army. Because it's been my argument for a very long time that the prequel trilogy and even the original trilogy are about Obi-Wan's redemption, not Anakin's.
Right, because if Anakin had been on that platform when seeing that clone army, it would have been a totally different reaction.
Right? But it's the failures of Obi-Wan that lead everything down the paths that they go down. And so I've always just for me personally, I've always felt that those 6 stories were really about resolving Obi-Wan's mistakes in life. So for me for him to be at that core central moment where the universe changed, I thought was really cool. So I'm glad that he's the one who discovered it. And then we bounce back to Naboo.
Yay.
And my first note is zero chemistry.
Well, she was trying with that corset and that weird vampire chic nightclub lingerie.
My note on that is Dominatrix Padme is hot, but really, who dresses like this normally to just hang around the living room?
That's a good point. Yeah, I think she had a whip at her hip. You know, they didn't show it, but I'm sure it was there.
And that whole scene by the fireplace, man. Oh, and the fruit at the table bit, like
cheap parlor trick.
The fruit at the table was total showing off. He's like, I'm just gonna I'm sure I gotta find something else to try to impress her with.
Cheap parlor tricks.
But he stole half her peach.
And Natalie Portman is, look, there are moments in films where you see actors acting, right? Like there's no subtlety. They just miss the mark entirely, and they come across. Well, not phoning it in, trying too hard.
I gotcha.
Portman is trying so hard to act like Anakin is charming in these scenes, and it just doesn't work at all. Yeah. And I also wrote down Anakin always lies. He must have learned all that from Qui-Gon. Yeah. But beautiful locations. Everything in Naboo looked gorgeous. So
there was one outfit on Naboo when they first got there, that like rainbow colored flowy dress.
the sundress.
Yeah.
Which accompanied the worst scene in Star Wars history.
Uh-huh.
I hate sand. It's coarse and rough, and it gets all over the place.
Yeah, but we quote it all the time, don't we?
We do quote it all the time because I freaking hate it. Like,
Dave and I quoted that when we were at White Sands a couple months ago.
Yeah,
so did we. When we were at White Sands, we did it too.
It's not so much the line that I dislike. I dislike the delivery. And look,
How are you supposed to deliver that line?
I agree. I think Hayden is very good at playing the angry Anakin. I think he has a hard time with the romance side of the story. And look, he's dealing with George Lucas's writing in that regard, so I don't blame the actor necessarily for that. But
and he was like a late teens when he shot this, right? Wasn't he like 19?
19 or 20.
I think so.
So he doesn't really understand romance either at that point as a person.
No. And he is a good actor. Like, he did
he's a fabulous actor.
My Life as a House and
Glass House or whatever that is.
I mean, it just, I know he's got it in him to be a good actor, but I think he's one of those actors that needs a good director and he needs a good script, and he had neither in this case. So, yeah.
I think with what he was given, I think he did a good job with what he had. I really do.
Now, I've spoken a few times about how much I like the novelizations of these stories because they do delve into things that got cut out of the movies or ultimately didn't get shot within the films. Now, one of the aspects of the novelization for Attack of the Clones and for Revenge of the Sith are Anakin's dreams. Anakin's dreams are super, super important to the progression of Anakin as a character. They're given short shrift in this film. Anakin's having dreams about his mom, like all throughout the story up to this point. We only hear about it in a conversation he has with Obi-Wan where he says, dreams pass in time. And I like that Obi-Wan's so gentle with him during that sequence. But these dreams are the major motivating factor for Anakin to end up in a position where he falls for the first time completely to the dark side. And it's just not portrayed in the film hardly at all, which really bothers me.
Now, these dreams, aren't they fed to him from Palpatine, Emperor?
No.
Really?
No. He knows his mom's in trouble. So Anakin's very strong with the Force. Like, he's practically as powerful as Rey in that regard, so he can just do things. So his mom gets abducted by the Tusken Raiders.
Right.
That's when the dreams begin. So he's been having the dreams for like a month. When he gets to Tatooine, they're like, oh, she was captured a month ago. There's no way she's still alive. He's been having the dreams because he feels his mother in pain.
Oh, he's just that attuned to the Force.
Yeah.
Well, I think to tease some of your visions come a little bit more into effect in Revenge of the Sith. That might be a little bit more where he's kind of getting into that.
The Padme dying and childbirth bit, I see that being much more a Palpatine pushing something into his head.
No, maybe that's it because he saw how much the dreams and stuff affected him with his mom. That maybe he realized, because he did talk to Palpatine about these dreams and such.
Yeah.
So he realized, then the Emperor then realized that's a way he could help maneuver Anakin to the direction he wants him to go.
Yeah.
Okay. Got it. Thank you.
But yeah, so there's not much in the way of showing those dreams. They show it just before they head off to Tatooine. And I wish that they'd explored that more throughout the course of the film, seeing him seeing his mother in pain is his major problem. So anyway, that's just me. Back on Kamino, Django's leaving. Obi-Wan's leaving. Django bangs his head as he departs. Kind of fun nod to the stormtroopers banging their heads, since they all come from Django. Anakin and Padme wind up. Well, let's talk real quickly. Django and Obi-Wan's battle on Kamino. Pretty cool.
It is the coolest. Yeah, it is my favorite Force user versus non-Force user fight ever, because you think, well, these Jedi, I mean, but Django holds his own and kind of, knocks Obi-Wan off his trail. It was so cool. I love Django. I love his outfit. I love seeing the Slave One again. I like how his outfit also matches the Slave One, with the blue and the gray and stuff. I love everything about this fight. I think it is so fantastic. And it's almost, it's not comedic, but it's interesting because, like when Obi-Wan uses the lariat to sort of knock Django over, and then as he's going, he realizes, oh my God, I'm still attached to him. He goes, oh, not good, and he gets pulled down. It's fantastic. I love it. I love this fight sequence.
Well, for me, it was like the promise of what Boba Fett was in the original trilogy, right? We finally get to see that.
Yep,
that kind of battle.
That's exactly that's where I was going with that.
Of course, it doesn't stop Django from dying like a chump at the hands of Mace Windu later in the movie. But,
he's not perfect.
Apparently, none of the Fets are. But yeah, so okay, cool. So we're all in agreement that was a really cool fight scene. Nothing more needs to be
awesome.
Said, really. Tatooine, Watto. Again, one of my favorite characters of the prequels. Apparently, that makes me a racist, according to Jordan. But I love old and broken Watto.
Yeah, I like it. Well, he got his own. He got his comeuppance.
I love that he was so broken after Qui-Gon left. He eventually had to sell Shmi off.
Yeah, that's terrible.
I just love how the subtle reenact how they come back together. The acting is during that, where Watto's trying to question, see what they want, and Anakin just picks up the droid. Simple. Where's Shmi? Still working on the droid, and that alone just clues him in. Anakin, is that you? Like.
And seeing that realization on Watto's face is wonderful animation.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very subtly,
really emoted.
Very, very subtly played on the facial expressions of a digital character, which I thought was wonderful. Yeah. Really cool. One of the first times that a digital character, I think, showed so much emotion without speaking, which I think was cool. The Boba Fett bit. So Boba Fett's in this movie too, as a little kid.
Yeah.
I've got two notes on the Boba Fett stuff. One, did we need to see baby Boba Fett? It doesn't do anything for me, and I personally didn't like seeing that. Honestly, I don't think Jango Fett needed to be Boba Fett's clone or dad, if you will. It's almost like trying too hard to tie into the original trilogy to me. I don't know. That's my thought. But then my second thought is Boba laughs on Slave One at one point, and I wrote, "Why is it when anyone laughs in this film, it's off-putting?"
It's horrible ADR, just horrible ADR. I don't know, but yeah, no, it's so weird. Yeah, it's so weird.
Oh yeah.
No.
Terrible. And don't get me wrong, I love New Zealand. I want to go there someday. I really, really want to explore Middle Earth, but I don't like that the Fets are suddenly New Zealand accented characters. Like, it's wrong.
Well, I kind of did only because it makes the clone troopers. There's a lot of look. I read a lot of the books and stuff, and there's a lot of similarities between the clone trooper culture and the Maori battle culture. Which I really found fascinating. I love that. So, to that respect, I like that they were New Zealanders. And I like that with the haka and all that stuff. I think it's awesome. But don't go back and change his voice.
That accent was never Boba Fett's voice. He's no good to me dead. Right? I mean,
I like that.
You know, there was a cool to the voice that was used for Boba Fett before, and to turn all the Fetts into New Zealanders, which I get. They shot down in Australia for these runs of films. You're pulling from pools of actors that are more local, but it just, I don't know, it didn't work for me. But Sonic charges are way freaking cool.
Oh, so awesome! This is one of the best space battles I've seen in these films.
And for all of Obi-Wan's hating to fly, he's a pretty decent flyer.
Well, he managed to pull one over on the Fetts, which Boba Fett took to heart because, and I'm sure this isn't lost on any of you, but that maneuver that he pulled to sort of fly under their radar, that's the same exact maneuver that Boba Fett uses against Han Solo 3 films later, and I loved it. I loved that he got it from Obi-Wan himself.
Cool. Okay. Back on Tatooine, Anakin's finding out about his mom. He goes driving off. He goes to go driving off. That's where we get the cool Vader shadow. It's reminiscent of the poster from the first movie, which I think is cool. But this is also where we get the speeder ride at sunset, which is beautiful. But Mike and I were talking about this. Why Duel of the Fates to complement that shot, that scene?
I never noticed that. You're right. It doesn't make sense.
Seems out of place.
Yeah.
I get if you want some music to go for like a quick like montage for like him like searching, but only stopped at like he stopped at one place, then the Jawas, and then like one other like overlook. But like there wasn't like a good like montage of him like stopping at different places to like really figure out what happened. Just ask the Jawas and they'll know. My other critique about that is, we talked about this, is again, worlds that are all the same temperature and so we've always known Tatooine's got 2 suns, but we find out that it's got 3 moons in this scene. And it's bright and starry. If you've ever shot anything on a full moon, you know there's no stars. So if you have 3 moons, just something. So, but yeah, I never quite understood why they chose that music for that moment.
Yeah, no idea.
They just ran.
I'm like sitting here. I'm trying to think about why they would, and I have no idea.
So, yeah. But then we end up finally at the camp of the Tusken Raiders.
Yeah, where Anakin
I'm going to tell
annihilates.
Oh, yeah, he destroyed them. But beforehand, I kind of like seeing a little bit of the Tusken Raider culture. I mean, you finally saw women, you finally saw children, you saw their weird pets, you saw where they actually lived, you know. And the same is kind of true of the Jawas. I mean, they finally opened the Sandcrawler a little bit, and you see a camp in the distance. I really love Tatooine, and so I really enjoyed getting to see how the other cultures that cohabit with the humans sort of live, even if they're on the verge of being slaughtered immediately.
Well, and it's kind of cool because, they talk about the Tusken Raiders as being these savages that don't care or have heart and are just ruthless. But then Anakin shows up at their home base camp and, here they are now being shown as normal, everyday, living.
That adds weight to what Anakin then does to all of us. Because if we had just heard, oh yeah, he went and slaughtered some Tusken Raiders, then you're like, oh no, okay, so. But then it makes him more. It gives you more empathy.
Yeah, and it makes it also show that even though he showed up and they're not these ruthless, scary, nasty creatures, they're when they're back home, they're just, normal home living, makes what he does even worse.
Yeah.
This is Sean.
So yeah, that conversation with Padme though, back at the homestead, was that this is where like red flags should have been going off the entire time, and
yeah.
Oh,
I'm
okay.
sorry. I'm in love with you. I'm going to chase you around like a puppy dog. But by the way, I murdered kids and women and these men. And please love me, and I hope you're okay with it.
I think there was a missed opportunity to do better editing on the film at this point. Because where he's talking about, I killed the men, I killed the women, I killed the children.
They should have showed him doing
I wanted to see them cut back to those shots.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think we saw enough of him being dark here. And it's almost like it's almost like they didn't want to show us him being dark so that we could accept the idea that Padme would be like, oh, it's cool.
No one's going to accept the idea that she'd just be, oh, it's cool. Like, I don't
Yeah, if anything, she tells him, I mean, she's kind of enabling him, right? Because she's like, no, look, let me help you justify this. I mean, it's almost as if he kind of wants to, not that he wants to atone, but he's, I mean, at the point you kind of go, hey, listen, first off, what you did is not okay. Second of all, I don't think this is going to work out. We should probably see other people.
Right?
I mean, this is such an egregious moment that Qui-Gon Jinn comes back from the grave to scream out.
No. Yeah.
But how horrible was that recording? They took the one clip where he yells Anakin, they doubled it up, which, I mean, it was obvious, and then whoever yelled no sounded like Cookie Monster. He didn't sound anything at all like Liam Neeson. I mean, just replace him entirely with a voice actor, would you? Cheap bastards.
I do want to point out, though, that this is the first voice from Beyond the Grave, and Yoda doesn't quite make enough of that. You know, like he talks about it later in Sith when he says to Obi-Wan, you know, Qui-Gon has been teaching me how to commune from beyond. Really, wouldn't Yoda's response here have been more like, damn, amazing this is. Like, he's so fucking nonchalant about it, you know? Like, I don't know, just me. It seems like it should have been a bigger moment.
Hey, Mike, didn't you have some notes in here on the stages Anakin goes?
So within this 10-minute block from when he leaves Naboo, or when they're still on Naboo, to the scene back in the homestead, it's only about 10 minutes. You have the full fear leads to anger, anger leads to hate, hate leads to suffering, all within 10 minutes. And
wow, good point.
So you have the fear of the visions of that he's fearing for his mom. He gets to Shmi, but then just the anger that you see in his eyes when he's too late, when he couldn't save her. He blames them, but he also later on you see like he blames himself for not being there.
I wasn't strong enough. Yeah.
Yep. To just complete anger, to hate, to destroying absolutely everything. And then in that talk he's having with Padme, he fully just collapses into suffering.
Nice catch, Mike.
Wow, good catch. Great catch, Mike. Hey, how weird was it that they just left the farm without saying bye? You know what I mean? Holy moly. Just pop in real quick and be like, hey, listen, thank you for all the food. Sorry your wife is dead. I'm as upset because my mother's dead. But also, I'm going to steal your protocol droid. I know you're, empty-handed since mom was gone, but things are about to get a lot rougher because I'm taking your other farmhand.
Technically, 3PO is Anakin's droid.
Right, but give him a heads up. You know what I mean? Say, hey, look, thank you for putting us up for the night. Jesus.
It's also at this point that Obi-Wan's discovering everything going on Geonosis, and he contacts Mace and Yoda and Anakin and Padme through the relay. I love that whole sequence of them watching him on the communique and then seeing the droidicas come through, with no shields, by the way. Seeing the droidicas come through. And then the transmission goes out. I like the mystery of that and how it kind of compels everybody to finally take some actions. Padme, at this point, makes the decision to go rescue Obi-Wan. knowing that she's making Anakin go against the wishes of the council to stay on Tatooine. Again, she's just going where the story tells her to go. I don't know why Padme would do that.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense because Anakin's like, he goes, look, don't leave Padme's side. And he's like, yeah, okay, but I gotta save my mom. There's no question about it. And they go, Obi-Wan's in trouble too. Yeah, he's got this. He's got this. It makes no sense to me. And Padme is a very reasonable, level-headed woman. So it really surprises me that she would jump at it. I mean, they kind of foreshadow when the bodyguard's like, I'd be more scared of her doing something. Wink, wink on the nose.
What do you mean she's a reasonable, level-headed woman? That makes no sense. Red flags.
Oh, you know what? You're right. No. She loves bad boys and is attracted to danger. You're right. I'm thinking of the Clone Wars where, they actually fleshed out the characters and they were three-dimensional.
Okay. We also get the beautiful Dooku Obi-Wan scene at this point. I liked this whole sequence because Obi-Wan just comes across as a total badass. Even though he's like strung up and can't do anything, he's just like, no, you're wrong.
I love Dooku's character. Christopher Lee did perfect as him. But I just love he's just this old style, sophisticated Jedi. Where even from the curved lightsaber to his ship has sails, actually like sails on his ship. Reminds me of just an old British captain.
Well, the character Count Dooku is an interesting one because he does come from a royal lineage on his planet.
You and I started listening.
I got to go answer my door. You guys keep talking.
Yeah. Okay. Talk amongst yourselves. No, Dooku's fantastic, but what a ham he is, right? I mean, but even when he walks in, he's like, oh, my friend, there's been a horrible mistake. Whoops-a-daisy. I mean, come on, dude. But I like that he still hams it up. Even his response is like hammy and over the top. I love the guy.
I just love how you really don't know if he's telling the truth or not the entire time. He is really good about, for the most part, what he's telling Obi-Wan is straight truth to his face. But Obi-Wan's like, no, I don't believe you. I wouldn't. There are points where, he even says, I wonder if Qui-Gon would have actually listened to him and helped him. And there's points where I'm like, Qui-Gon was kind of a rebel as far as the Jedi goes. There is some truth to this.
It's so funny, Mike. We actually hit all these notes on the last podcast, but you're absolutely right. And watching it today, it strengthens that. Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. I think Qui-Gon would have at least considered Dooku.
Yeah. Wait till Dave comes back on here.
Yeah.
Basically, I said I love the fact that he's telling the truth for the most part straight to Obi-Wan's face, and he just doesn't care. And that's how good this character is about being truth and deceptive. Is you just don't quite know what he's actually telling the truth. But then he even says, "I wonder if Qui-Gon would have joined me on this journey." And there's parts of me where I'm like, I think he actually would have.
Yeah, I think so too.
Qui-Gon was wildly rebellious.
Exactly. That's what I said. Yep.
And a liar.
A dirty, dirty liar.
So I really like the
Dooku
whole scene.
Why would Dooku go, hey, listen, I got bad news. There's a Sith Lord in charge of everybody, and you know what? I'll even give you the guy's name. But then, I mean, why would he? It just seems weird to me because he's in on the plot, so why would he give that information to Obi-Wan?
Monologuing.
I guess it just seems so out of place.
I'm telling you, it was a perfect monologue, perfect in every way. Everybody loved the monologue. It was fantastic. The best monologue in histories of monologues. Yeah, Dooku's an interesting character, and it's great to see Christopher Lee playing that. I mean, what a run that guy had towards the end of his career there, right? Got to play Dooku, got to play Saruman. What a lot of fun to play in these big franchise films at the end there.
Cool lightsaber.
He's been the best villains.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, so classic. But lest we forget, Christopher Lee also played Dracula, and he was one of the best James Bond villains of all time.
Absolutely. Great career.
He's a cool guy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so we go from the coolness of the conversation with Count Dooku to everything in the droid factory, which just...
Do we really have to talk about the droid factory? I mean,
no, we're not. We're just going to...
Because it's so stupid.
Yeah, that whole sequence was pointless, didn't drive the story forward, and gave George Lucas reason to cut out actual story development scenes with Padme's family and Anakin on Naboo.
I mean, the only good thing that came in that stuff was the funny lines from 3PO and R2. Like the banter with those two.
This is the first time you see the two of them really together as a pair.
And going off and doing their own little adventure. Like, that's the extent of that, but...
R2-D2 has jetpacks now?
Yep.
Yeah. Why is he not just use those the whole time?
There's just too much about this
right?
That doesn't work for me, you know.
The thing that got me is even before they're actually into the factory, the conveyor belt, is there Padme and Anakin are walking down the hall, and all the creatures are coming off from the wall, and you're like, neither of you heard this or could sense this at all? Like, your force is supposed to be everywhere, and you're supposed to sense all this stuff.
Earlier in the film, Anakin can sense everything in that room.
Yeah.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Okay.
I'm not there, and I can hear it.
Bad writing. Bad writing all the way around.
Yeah.
Yeah, very bad writing.
So we'll move ahead. They get captured. Everything goes down there, and then they're being carted out into the arena. And
it's one of my favorite scenes.
And
but the shot of them being hauled out, I love.
No, it's great. It's great. But the conversation beforehand, here's my note on the conversation beforehand. Heading out to die and still no chemistry. It's love by exposition.
I truly super duper mondo mega love you.
That's exactly what Padme says.
That's what it is. You can tell by the sound of my voice.
And that comes so serious. Out of left field, and 10 minutes after he murdered an entire community. Like, come on.
So everyone knows there's a main theme that happens in each episode. The love theme for Anakin and Padme is it for Attack of the Clones, and it's strongest here as they're going out. But it's a good theme by itself. But it never hit for me. And I think because it's just the connotation with everything that goes around, this forced love just doesn't, it's not one of my favorite themes as far as Star Wars goes.
Yeah, there's no "I love you, I know" in this.
If there was a real connection, that love theme would be amazing. It really would.
It's a beautiful piece of music.
It is a beautiful, and if you listen to that music without the visuals of the ridiculousness of this romance, it is wonderful.
Yep.
So put
John
it up
Williams can only do so much.
He can only do so much.
Poor bastard.
God, yeah, this romance is just cringy and wrong in so many ways.
Yeah. Speaking of wrong in so many ways, do you guys remember the controversy of the Little Mermaid castle?
Yes.
With
penis.
Yeah. With the penis in it?
Yeah, the penis in it, yeah.
Go back and watch this arena scene. Every time they cut to a wide shot of Dooku up on his dais, tell me those aren't clitoral hoods at the top of the dais.
Yes.
Thank God you said it. Oh,
absolutely.
I was thinking it, and I said, I don't want to be lewd.
Nope, absolutely. Those are completely clits. Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yeah.
I will be the first to straight up say
I didn't want to let it go by without mentioning it.
I always point out all the sexual parts in every movie, building, whatever I spot and see. So yes, absolutely, it's correct.
Yeah, and that explains why every time I see that scene, my nipples get hard. Now I know.
Well, it's why I find it hard to believe in Geonosis, because I don't think it actually exists.
Oh, that makes sense.
Bum.
Okay, so they're all cuffed up. Padme's resourceful. She gets out of cuffs on her own. I do like that she does that on her own. And Anakin's like, oh, what about Padme? And Obi-Wan's just like, she seems to be doing fine, dumbass.
Was that like training that she had somewhere with maybe the security guys? Because I'm like, where would she have learned how to do that in a Senate position or Queen position and all these things?
She had a body.
She was a magician one summer.
They obviously wanted her to be able to take care of herself should things go
and
wrong.
Escape things. Yeah, absolutely. I could see them trying to train.
Yeah, okay.
Think about the
I could see them trying to train.
Like a training.
Yeah, a little bit of training.
Think about the fact that as a teenage queen, she knew how to fire a phaser pistol. Like she knows how to take care of herself. They trained her.
That's true.
Yeah. Droidekas have no shields. Look at all the Jedi. Jango goes out like a chump, and in comes Vietnam War hero Yoda.
Yeah, he is Space John McCain. I love it.
He's Space John McCain.
He is the maverick of the Jedi Order, and I love him for it.
I love Yoda leading the droid army or the clone army. I think it's so much fun. And those visuals of him watching the battles from the deck of his flight ship, it's just cool. It's everything I wanted the Clone Wars to be. I wish more of this movie was actually that.
I loved this all the Jedi and it just that was what we were all waiting for again in this movie. That's what we all wanted when you heard the lame title, Attack of the Clones. Great, but that also meant that there was this idea and promise that we're going to get a bunch of Jedi fighting. So it was awesome to see that.
I remember a long time ago thinking, well, why didn't all the creatures realize that the Jedi were just standing around? Because the Jedi look nothing like any of the other creatures that are standing around. But then I think on this last viewing, it just kind of dawned on me. I'm like, well, they're Jedi. It's the whole, these aren't the droids you're looking for kind of deal. You just kind of put an aura of blending in around you, and nobody even notices you're there.
Yeah.
We got to see female Jedis and stuff too, so that was
because it was when all of a sudden you started seeing the lightsabers pop on around the arena. It was like, why didn't you notice this guy standing right next to you? But
well, I think I agree with you. I agree with you, Brian. They definitely they can put in just the sense out of nobody needs to notice me. They don't need to notice I'm here.
Yeah.
Yeah, true. Now, can I mention something real quick? Because this is the first time we see female Jedi Isla Secura, right? And she's absolutely gorgeous. But what bothers me is, can we please stop the objectification of Twi'lek women in this? She's the only one that's actually wearing a bikini. And then earlier in the scene, when they're all in Palpatine's chambers, there's a Twi'lek that is pretty much showing her boob and her. I mean, you know what I mean? And we got those weird twins in the other one. Could we stop? I get it, they're hot, but can we get back to the story and stop trying to titillate? It grosses me out.
They're the Orion.
Am I that off base?
They're the Orion slave women of the Star Wars universe.
Yeah, and it's gross. I mean, geez, he's doing with those girls what he was doing with Chewbacca back in the day, which was making him sort of a second-class citizen, and it's gross to me. It's just weird. It's odd. You know what I mean? Don't pretend to be for inclusion. If you're going to include, female leads, include strong female leads. Don't maybe put them in bikinis when they don't need to be.
Well, we've already established, though, that he doesn't know how to write for strong female leads, because clearly the strong female lead also falls in love with the crazy, psycho, murderous person. So,
that is true.
In both sets of trilogies, the strong woman falls for the bad boys.
Yeah. Yep.
That's the same.
It's true.
I love the battle in the dust haze. with all the blaster fire and the glowing and the dust haze and stuff. Just a lot of fun. Did anybody else notice the Death Star plans in the background of the command room?
Yep.
Yes.
Through the whole thing. Now, when Dooku goes to leave, he takes the plans to go run and keep them safe and take them to Coruscant. Interesting thing here, right? The plans already exist for the Death Star.
How cool is that?
But maybe they weren't finished, hence Orson Krennic's need to develop the mechanism to power the gun.
Yes.
Yeah. I loved that we saw the Death Star in this.
Yes, because I think these were like the original set of architectural plans for the Death Star, but I think the actual technology behind the actual firing power of it wasn't created yet.
Well, you see their Federation ships, right, are basically small versions of the Death Star. I remember seeing that in theater. Oh, it kind of looks like the Death Star. And then later on, oh, here's the plans. Oh, shit, they're from the same area. Okay, this kind of makes sense where they're coming from then.
Well, they get destroyed the same way, too.
Blown up from the inside out. I've got a note here. I think it was when they walk in and the two Jedi are facing down Dooku. I wrote, Dooku must reek of old man aftershave.
That's so true. Also, it's hard to respect Dooku after you see him right away on that ridiculous little speeder bike. I mean, the thing, I'm surprised it didn't have a basket in the front. They're chasing him and Dooku just going, tring, tring. Oh, there's Dooku. I heard the little ring of the bell. That thing is embarrassing. I'm surprised it didn't have training wheels.
Now, Raymond said he didn't really care for the lightsaber duels here. He mentioned that they did a stylistic thing that didn't work for him. They had to do the
same thing.
Well, they shut the lights out, and it's a bunch of close-ups.
Right. Okay. So it's the same thing from the originals. So you have an old man fighting.
Who can't actually fight.
Who can't actually fight. So the same thing with Alec Guinness and Vader. It's a lot of close-ups of the face with the lightsaber going whoosh, whoosh, in front of their face. The only way to make it slightly different from that is to turn out the lights and give them more of a colorful glow.
Which I thought was cool.
I thought was a cool way to try
Brian did point out that this was also one of the first attempts at facial mapping in film because they did put Christopher Lee's head onto a body double for some of the wides. If you're really paying attention, it doesn't work very well.
No. But their hope was, since this was the initial thing, is you have enough to look at that you're not going to catch it.
Yeah.
I loved Yoda's entrance here.
So cool.
A little hobble in.
The tick of his cane as he's
so
walking.
ballin'. It was ballin' is what it was. He had a swagger going in with the cane.
I remember
with that long shadow.
I remember this in theaters, right? Like, this is the moment everyone in the theater stood up and just like, oh my God, we're finally going to see Yoda with a lightsaber. Hell yeah. It's just screaming all this was the biggest pop that had for the movie in the theater.
It's also one of those things that either works for you or doesn't.
Yes.
There is no in between.
No.
You either really dig Frog Hoppin' Yoda or you think it's a cartoon. I fall in the love Frog Hoppin' Yoda camp.
I love.
Absolutely.
Awesome. And there's Jordan.
There's Jordan. So my thing is, what I love is, I love that in this aspect, we got to see how individual Jedis have individual styles of fighting. So Count Dooku, I think Mikey said this, Count Dooku has a very fencing feel to his style from being a more royalty, and the way he holds his lightsaber up to his face and swashes it down to his side is fencing. That's how you initiate your fight, your match in fencing. So to have Yoda being this tiny little thing, but to be this very fluid, bouncy, quick movement thing fits the statue of what he is, fight style, So I love that in this movie we got to see the different ways of how things, how Jedi fight. So for me, I loved it. I loved seeing that they all don't fight the same way. So all lightsaber battles aren't done the same way because everybody has a different style to it. Even Obi-Wan has a different style to his fighting than the others. And then if you go back to Phantom Menace, Darth Maul had a whole jujitsu types, fight style to it. So
yeah, Obi's always been more a defensive style than
Darth Maul almost looks like he could go parkour if he needed to.
Yeah, that was so cool with the kicks. I don't know. I just thought Yoda looked a little goofy sometimes with the twirls and the jumping and look. I get why he does it. He's small and whatnot. Holy moly! What happened to all the dignity? This guy's. He looks like a Daffy Duck cartoon from the 40s. You know what I mean? This dude's all over the map, and it's like, look, can we just get some dignity back and I don't know. I think George Lucas. I think he was out of ideas. He was like, well, I'll have him twirl around like a weird frog. It was odd. It was odd.
Well, but this is where size matters, though. His little tiny lightsaber compared to the size of Dooku's. How else is he supposed to be able to fight?
I don't know. I just think they could have found a way that wouldn't make me chortle, But I don't know. What do I know? I'll tell you this, though. Nice reference. How cool was Yoda's crazy retro-looking lightsaber?
Right? Yeah, nice.
I loved it.
Let's see here. So Dooku manages to leave by threatening the life of Obi-Wan and Anakin, so Yoda has to take care of them. He takes off and leaves in a solar sailcraft, which looks really cool, but is completely impractical for interstellar flight.
So slow. Why? How did I even think of it that's a good idea?
I mean, cinematically, it looks really cool, but if you know anything about the science, Dooku would long be turned to dust before he ever got to Coruscant. He does go to Coruscant to deliver the Death Star plans to Darth Sidious. This is where we find out that he is Darth Tyrannus, officially. And apparently Coruscant has a dark side neighborhood.
It's called the Works. It's just the bad part of town. It's like the wrong side of the Coruscant tracks.
Yeah.
they actually explored a lot in the books, and it's one of my favorite parts of Coruscant because it's just a bunch of old. It's Coruscant's version of Detroit. It's just a bunch of old husks of buildings where people do drugs and Sith lords run amok, making evil.
And then we get the shot of Palpatine overlooking his grand clone army, and Bail Organa doesn't look like he's very happy about it.
Yeah, I think I saw him mouth "aw shucks."
Well, he actually pounds his fist into the top of the guardrail of the dais, and looks down and shakes his head.
Yeah, you couldn't see it. He was kicking a pebble. It was very, very sad.
I think there could have been more to that scene in terms of showing kind of the unhappiness about having an army suddenly. I don't know, but obviously we watched Palpatine use this whole thing to his advantage. This is also when he had Jar Jar Binks push forward him becoming getting the supreme powers, the ability to essentially act like an emperor. And I think interesting that Jar Jar is the one who does that. The country bumpkin is the one who lets evil into the house. Just saying.
Or is he?
Maybe my politics are showing again. And yes, you'll get your chance, Brian, to elaborate on your favorite theory. Final shot of the mirror. Final shot of the movie is a mirror of The Empire Strikes Back. Final shot. They're overlooking a lake instead of a galaxy. But I like the synergy of finishing with, the droids standing on one side and the humans on the other, and I don't know, looking off into the distance. And what was the marriage of Anakin and Padme? You think more people would have known that happened? I don't know how you'd keep that secret.
Me neither. Especially, C-3PO's got a big mouth.
Right?
Well, they were trying to keep the whole thing secret from the get-go, so...
Yeah, so why have a ceremony? I don't know. It just feels weird to have a ceremony on something that you're trying to keep secret with such a public figure like Padme. And it's an outdoor affair.
It's an outdoor affair.
Are there no paparazzi droids?
It's her country home that's out in the middle of nowhere. Like she already explained that there's
it's like if she had a villa in Italy or something,
Lake Como.
Yeah, right. There's plenty of,
Lake Como.
Yeah.
It was Lake Como.
Yeah, actually, I think it might have. It either was George Clooney's one on the lake or one right next to his.
That's what I heard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, anyway, that's Attack of the Clones.
Yay! Well, good review, kids.
Yeah, this was supposed to be a short review.
That didn't happen.
We've
been reviewing longer than the movie lasts.
Well, no, this one was longer than so this movie was at 2 hours and 24 minutes or something?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, so we're right about on par with the film on this one. So
I was gonna say we're at 2:12.
Yeah, so but hey, we're passionate about these films. We got a lot to say about them. If you think we're poo-pooing them, we kind of are, but in a spirit of love.
Okay, so we poo-poo, but I like the prequels. I do.
I like the prequels too. They're at the bottom of my list of the films, but it's not just because they're at the bottom doesn't mean I don't have affection.
So we did this with Phantom. Where's your overall with this one?
Just
What's your rating?
Just above Phantom. I agree with the general polls that I've seen. Yeah,
me too.
No, this is bottom for me. I actually enjoyed Phantom a bit more than this.
I like this better strictly because the acting is better.
True,
but I actually think the writing was better for Phantom.
Yeah, maybe that's what it is. Yeah,
I went back and I think I rated Phantom a 7, and I'm giving this one a 6. They're close. They're very close. But I think watching this again, I forgot how slow this one is. This one really is slow for the first. Until you get to Kamino, I was bored.
Yeah, I fell asleep twice on this last viewing.
Yeah.
You're an old man who falls asleep all the time. You're turning into Steve Schwartz's dad.
But then looking back at it too, it's like how much of it is just the fact that I really love Maul and the end battle scene of Phantom. Like that alone, if I could just have a movie of that, perfect. That's all I need. So it's kind of like
I don't know that I'd say this film is slow though, because it does have the chase on Coruscant. It's got the Kamino battle between Jango and Obi-Wan.
But there's a good time between that.
Fight. Yeah, but Phantom Menace, are you kidding me? The pod race is an hour and 20 minutes into the movie. Before you get any action. So.
Well, but this movie is also 20 minutes longer than Phantom. Yeah. And maybe that's where the problem is this is where we start to get into movies maybe being
but let's be honest,
a little too long.
14 minutes of it is that stupid droid factory crap.
14 minutes.
See, I'm at least entertained during that part.
Oh my God, we're done. Thank you all for joining us on Sci-Fi Sunday.
I actually do have to be going, so I mean, I don't know if you guys are going to continue, but I probably got to hit the road.
It's a
myself.
great conversation, guys. Thank you all for making the time this morning. We will be back again next week with Revenge of the Sith, which
yes,
I'm excited to get to.
I'm excited on this one.
I haven't watched it in a few years, so I'm excited to sit down and watch it again. And it's going to be great. Going to be great. Until then, I've been sitting down with
Teresa Dawson,
Frankie Davis,
Mike Peterson,
Jordan Jacobo,
and I'm Dave Dawson, and we are Sci-Fi Sunday version 2.0. We'll see you all again very, very soon. Bye. Thanks again for joining us on the Sci-Fi Sunday version 2.0 podcast. And don't forget, you can call us and leave us your own voicemail of your review of any one of the Skywalker Saga films, and you may be featured in a future episode of Sci-Fi Sunday. Simply call us at 760-456-9469 and leave us your review of any one of the films from episode 1 all the way to episode 8. And we will be counting down the films over the next several weeks in the lead up to The Rise of Skywalker. If you've enjoyed this program, please check out our other podcast, The Intellectual Podcast. You can find it on our website at ixe.us, or you can find it on any one of your podcast players that you may subscribe to.